Title: The evolutionary reason you can't stop spending money. You know the feeling. You did not need the thing. You were not even looking for it. But something about it, the color, the brand, the price point, that made it feel like a deal. The sense that someone else might get it first, made it feel urgent. And then you bought it. And then, fairly quickly, you stopped thinking about it. That experience, the compulsion to acquire, the pleasure of getting, the rapid evaporation of satisfaction afterward, is not a personal failure. It is the output of a motivational system that evolved over millions of years for a very different purpose, running in a commercial environment specifically engineered to exploit it. Start with the baseline: hunter-gatherer groups, the social and ecological context that shaped human psychology for most of our evolutionary history, operated in conditions of intermittent scarcity. Resources were not reliably available. Calories required effort to find and could not be stored indefinitely. Calorie-dense foods were rare and highly valuable. Social status within the group determined access to food, mates, safety, and the cooperation of others. In that environment, the motivational profile that produced survival and reproductive success involved acquiring resources aggressively when they were available, competing for social status, monitoring what other group members had relative to what you had, and being exquisitely sensitive to losses. Each of these motivations has a neural substrate. The dopaminergic reward system, the network of brain regions centered on the nucleus accumbens and the ventral tegmental area, is the primary mechanism through which the brain signals the value of potential rewards and drives behavior toward acquiring them. Dopamine is not, as it is commonly described, the pleasure chemical. It is more accurately the anticipation chemical. Dopamine activity spikes in response to cues that predict reward, not in response to the reward itself. This distinction matters enormously for understanding spending behavior. When you see a product you want, a pair of shoes, a gadget, a sale item, the cue-induced dopamine spike generates a feeling of wanting, of urgency, of the sense that getting this thing will be satisfying. When you actually get it, the dopamine system checks the reward against the prediction, and if the reward matches or exceeds the prediction, you get a smaller dopamine hit. If the reward falls short of the prediction, if the thing is not as satisfying as the wanting predicted it would be, the system generates what is called a prediction error, which is experienced as mild dissatisfaction. The wanting almost always exceeds the having. The system is designed to keep you wanting, because in the ancestral environment, satisfied animals stopped searching for resources, and that was dangerous. Loss aversion, the well-documented asymmetry in how humans process gains and losses, in which the pain of losing something is roughly twice as intense as the pleasure of gaining the equivalent thing, is another ancient circuit running in a modern context. In the ancestral environment, losing resources was genuinely dangerous. Losing food meant going hungry. Losing social standing meant losing access to cooperation. The heightened sensitivity to potential loss made adaptive sense. In a commercial environment, loss aversion is exploited continuously. Limited time offers, low stock warnings, clearance sales, and countdown timers all activate the same circuit that evolved to prevent dangerous resource loss, creating urgency around purchasing decisions that are objectively inconsequential. Status signaling through consumption has a clear evolutionary basis as well. In small group environments, visible displays of resources, the quality of your dwelling, your clothing, your tools, the food you ate, signaled your position in the group hierarchy, your access to desirable resources, and your capacity to attract mates and allies. High-status individuals had better outcomes across multiple fitness-relevant dimensions. The motivation to signal status through resource display was directly adaptive. Modern consumer culture maps onto this system with precision. Luxury goods, brand names, and conspicuous consumption are, in evolutionary terms, the equivalent of wearing a signal of high status, telling others through visible resource display that you have access to things others do not. The psychological satisfaction of a high-status purchase is the satisfaction of a status signal successfully transmitted. The brain's reward system does not distinguish between a signal of status that was genuinely adaptive in an ancestral context and one that is essentially theatrical in a modern one. The social comparison dimension compounds everything. The ancestral reference group, the 50 to 100 individuals whose opinions and relative position shaped your survival and reproductive prospects, has been replaced, psychologically, by an essentially unlimited comparison pool. Social media feeds billions of people a continuous stream of curated displays of consumption, travel, and lifestyle from individuals they will never meet, activating social comparison circuits that evolve to track the status of immediate neighbors in a small group. The result is a reference group problem. Your brain is trying to locate your position relative to a population that is effectively infinite and specifically selected for aspirational display. There are people for whom consumer spending functions as a direct mood regulation strategy, the phenomenon sometimes called retail therapy. The anticipatory dopamine spike that accompanies shopping produces a genuine short-term mood improvement. This is not imaginary. It is a real neurochemical effect. It is also temporary. The effect dissipates quickly as the purchase is processed and the dopamine system returns to baseline, which is why the mood regulation benefit, if it is being used systematically, tends to require escalating spending to maintain the same effect. This is not to say that purchasing things is inherently irrational, or that consumer culture is simply an exploitation of primitive biology. Human material culture, the accumulation and distribution of goods, the investment in tools and technologies and objects, has been a driver of human flourishing in ways that are genuinely valuable. The issue is the mismatch between the motivational intensity of the ancestral acquiring system and the commercial environments that have been specifically designed through decades of marketing research to maximize activation of that system regardless of actual resource scarcity. The brain that cannot stop spending money is not malfunctioning. It is doing exactly what it was built to do, seeking resources, monitoring status, avoiding loss, and responding to cues of scarcity and opportunity. It was built for a world in which those drives were calibrated by genuine material conditions. It is now running in a world where the conditions have been engineered to make those drives feel perpetually unsatisfied. The evolutionary explanation does not resolve the practical problem, but it relocates it. The problem is not a personal weakness. It is a mismatch between ancient hardware and a very modern kind of environment.